Today's class is called Low Back Love. This is going to be a short class where we mobilize our low back. So we're going to get started on our backs. You can immediately start with the block underneath your sacrum in a supported bridge, or you can just lie flat on your back. Knees can be bent or legs extended out. I'm going to start in the supported bridge position. Hands are welcome to come to your rib cage. Close your eyes. Let's take a few deep breaths here, focusing on the rib cage expanding side to side as you breathe in. Working on a full exhale through your nose or mouth. Inhaling and feeling the rib cage widen. So if your hands are on your ribs, really try to feel the ribs expand or push into the hands. Exhaling fully. And now as you inhale, think about breathing directly into your back ribs. So if you have your thumbs hooked around the back ribs, try to feel your breath move into your thumbs. Expanding the breath backwards. Getting as much movement through the rib cage as we can while we inhale. Bring your hands to your pelvic points right at the front of your pelvis. We'll start with some tilts here. Inhale, tip the pelvis forward, lifting or arching your low back away from the ground. Exhale, tuck the tailbone under like you're scooping the tailbone up. And let's just oscillate back and forth in this pelvic tilt, forward and back. Freeing up some of that tissue at the back of the pelvis. And now we'll find that neutral. So somewhere right in the middle of those tilts where the sacrum, the back of the pelvis is down, hands are going to come to the outer hips. We're going to do a controlled knee drop. So let your left knee drop out without rocking to the left side of the pelvis, and then the right knee. So this could be really slow, really small. As we're doing this movement of hip abduction, think about your two pelvic points cinching in toward each other like you're tightening some sweatpants or your waistband on a pair of pants. Getting a little controlled movement through the hips. Now we'll lift off the block if we're on it using the glutes. Lower back down. If you have a block, place it between your knees or your thighs at any width for bridge pose. Hands can come to the thighs, they can stay on the pelvic points or even the ribs. We're going to segmentally lift and lower into our bridge. So curl the tailbone up, lift up one vertebra at a time. Staying low in your bridge so the action comes from using the glutes to lift, not the low back muscles. And we will tiptoe the spine back down one vertebra at a time. So as slowly and as mindfully as you can do this, lifting into low bridge using the glutes, lowering down using the glutes and the core. Keep that steady breath. Focus on expanding the breath side to side into the rib cage, front and back. Pressing into the whole feet, especially the balls of the feet and the big toes. Once you land in your bridge the next time, let's stay there. Again, draw or tighten those two pelvic points in. Bring one palm up and pull back with the other set of fingers, coming into a wrist extension stretch. Focus on your breath, pushing or expanding into your back ribs. Switch hands, stretch out the other wrist. Breathe into the side and back ribs, push into the feet. Hands will come back either to the thighs, pelvic points, or ribs, and we'll exhale one more time, slowly lower down until the sacrum lands. Once we land down, we'll take the block out, hands behind the head, elbows up or elbows in. Huge breath in. Exhale, cinch those pelvic points in as you lift off the shoulder blades. Head is heavy, so don't pull on the neck. Inhale and lower down. Exhale, cinch those pelvic points in, lift up without pulling on the head or neck. Gaze down toward the belly button. Inhale and lower. Let's add on. Exhale, lift up without yanking on the head. Zipper your pubic bone up to your belly button. Pick up the left foot from the top of the thigh bone. We're going to externally rotate, internally rotate, bring it back to neutral, step it down, inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. Tighten those two pelvic points in toward each other. Pick up the right foot. From the top of the right thigh bone, we externally rotate, internally rotate, back to neutral, step it down, inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. Zipper the pubic bone up. Pick up the right foot without arching the back. As we externally rotate, heel swivels to the right leg. Internally rotate, neutral, step it down, inhale, lower. Exhale, lift up. Hold that low back long and still as you pick up the right foot. Externally rotate the hip. Internally rotate. Back to neutral. Step it down. Inhale, lower. Let's hug the knees in. We're going to take just a gentle rock side to side. So rocking onto the right and left side of the sacrum. And from here, we'll make our way into quadruped. So coming onto hands and knees. If you wanted to put a block on your sacrum for a little bit of balance there, holding that low back really long and still, you can. We're going to feel those pelvic points tighten in. Hover your left knee off the ground without sinking that right hip out to the right. So right hip stays very strong. We're going to circle this left hip. So it looks like the left knee is drawing some circles. Can we draw circles with the hips without this affecting the lower back or the shoulders? Circle both directions. Holding really steady in that right hip. Lower down. Imagine a broom taped behind your back, touching the back of your head, shoulder blades and sacrum, back of the pelvis. We'll hover the right knee now. Let's make sure this left hip didn't just sit out to the left. Super strong and stable as we circle the right hip. Tiny circles both directions. Visualize those two pelvic points drawing in toward each other. Lower down to quadruped. Pelvic tilts. Let's isolate that low back area. Lift the tailbone. Tuck the tailbone. So we did this on our backs. Pelvic tilts, but now we're in quadruped. So see if you can do this without cat-cowing the whole spine or the whole back. Just the pelvis, tipping forward, tipping back. We'll take it into a bigger cat-cow now. Let the whole spine move. Inhale, extend the spine, arch the back. Exhale, round the back, flex the spine. Get as much movement as you can through each segment of the spine. The low back, which is the lumbar spine, the mid back, the thoracic spine, and maybe the head and neck, the cervical spine, if that feels good. Come to that neutral position again. Slide those knees in nice and tight toward the hands. We're going to tuck the toes, hike the pelvis straight up, up, up. So belly is toward the thighs in your down dog. We're in a really shortened triangle, knees bent, heels lifted. Hold the shoulders really strong and still. We'll swivel the knees and toes to the left, swiveling our down dog, and then knees and toes to the right. You could do this any pace. We swivel the lower body side to side. Shoulders stay squared, ribs stay lifted toward the body. Come back to that down dog. Walk your hands back towards your feet, happy squat. Hands can be as high as you need. Shins, thighs, wherever. And we're just going to do a little wiggle here like we're wagging our tail side to side. You can let the neck fully release. Long spine. We're gonna press the ground away with our very strong legs and glutes and rise up with a neutral spine. At the back of the mat, let's check in. Imaginary broom behind our back. Right foot steps forward, knees are soft. We zip our pubic bone to the belly. Left arm comes up, side bend. So we lift left armpit up, side bend up and over to the right, stretching this left side body. Come back up, stagger walk, left foot forward, right arm up. Armpit lifts, we side bend, and just keep walking our way forward, any pace, getting this nice side body stretch, holding the pelvis and the low back still. When you make your way to the front, we will pause again, check in, ears over the shoulders, ribs over the pelvis, reach the arms up. Armpits lift way up, hinge forward, long spine, quadruped. Pelvic tilts again, hold the rest of the spine still, lift the tailbone, tuck the tailbone. Couple times. Now you can stick with these pelvic tilts or find neutral, tighten those pelvic points in, tuck the toes, hover the knees as you exhale without rounding the back. Hold your hover or tap the knees down anytime. Deep core engagement. Softly land the knees, untuck the toes. We'll step the right foot forward. Left knee can slide in a little bit as we rise up into our active 90-90. So we zipper up, firm that left glute, fist or knuckles come together or clasp your hands. Inhale while we're facing right at center. Exhale, turn just the rib cage, but don't let the low back start to twist. Inhale back to center. Exhale, rotate, push that left glute forward. Inhale, center. Exhale, turn the ribs, thoracic rotation. One more, inhale. Exhale. Come back to center. Hands come down, three-legged quadruped. Right toe is back. Now we can keep the right toes tucked on the ground or we can float the right leg up. But let's make sure we don't arch the back. So keep zippering the pubic bone up. Left hip's gonna stay still and strong. We abduct the right leg. Right hip moves out to the right. And then we cross it over toward the left hip adduction. Hold the left hip still as we move right leg to the right. And then across the body to the left. This might be really small, especially as we cross over the body. So hold that left hip stable and the low back strong and long. This time we're going to bring it out to the right, adjust as needed, plant that right foot all the way down into an inner thigh stretch, an adductor rock, and we'll start to rock forward and back any amount. Stretching this right inner thigh up into the right side of the groin, holding long through the low back. So make sure you're not lifting the tailbone or tucking it, but it's staying fairly neutral. Bring the shoulders over your wrist, walk your hands either toward the right corner of the mat, the right side of the mat, or even all the way toward that right foot if that's available for this left side body stretch. You can stay here or you can sit the hips back a little bit. Deepening the stretch into the right inner thigh, left side body, but really lift the ribs up toward the body. Big breaths into the side and back ribs. Walk the hands back to center. Right knee comes in. Let's cat-cow. Moving the spine. Step your left foot forward. Active 90-90. Rise up, imaginary broom behind your back. Right glute nice and firm. Fists or knuckles together or clasp your hands. Inhale at center, so we're facing straight forward. Exhale, turn just the ribs, but not the pelvis. Inhale. Exhale, rotate. Feel those two pelvic points tighten in toward each other. Inhale. Exhale, zipper the pubic bone up to the belly button. One more time. Inhale. Exhale. Good, bring it back, hands come down. Left leg or left toes back, three-legged quadruped. You can be on the ground or off the ground. Right hip stays still. We abduct to the left. Adduct over to the right. Move the leg to the left, hip abduction. Cross the body to the right, hip adduction. Goal is to hold the right thigh bone and right hip still and keep the low back as long as possible so we're not wagging our tail side to side. We're trying to isolate just moving this left hip. Bring it all the way out to the left, adductor stretch or inner thigh stretch, and we'll rock it forward and back any amount that feels good. Shoulders over your wrist, hands walk toward the left corner, left side of the mat, left foot, wherever it feels good, stay here or sit the hips back further into that hip hinge. Pick up the ribs. Breathe into the side body and back body. Walk it back to quadruped. You can cat-cow. You can take a child's pose. You can tuck the toes, lift up for any kind of down dog. If you're in down dog, you're welcome to add those swivels if that feels nice. We'll walk it forward toward the front of the mat. Bent knee forward fold, belly toward the thighs. Reach the arms forward and up. Soften the knees. Exhale, hinge forward like that broom is behind you. Quadruped to start, hands and knees. Pelvic tilts, lift the tailbone. Tuck the tailbone, finding some movement through the lumbar spine, the low back, but not letting the ribs get involved. Stick with pelvic tilts or find neutral, like you're balancing a glass of water on your lower back. Tuck the toes, hover the knees, hovering quadruped, hold or tap the knees down anytime. Lower the knees, untuck the toes. We'll step right foot forward. Left knee slides in a little bit. You can tuck the left toes this time if you'd like as we rise up into that active 90-90. We're going to zipper pubic bone to belly. Both sets of fingertips reach down. Side bend to the right. So reach your right fingertips toward the ground. Come back up. Left fingertips toward the ground. So side bending is lateral flexion in the spine. As we side bend right, we're shortening the right side of the torso. As we side bend left, we're shortening the left side of the torso. Imagine your left knee and left thigh bone trying to lift off the ground. Up into that left side of the pelvis, super active in that left glute. Hands or fists come down. Three-legged quadruped again. If you would like to balance a block on your sacrum for a little bit more awareness to the low back, you're welcome to. Right leg back. Zipper pubic bone to the belly. Float the toes without arching the back. Bend the knee, just like we did in our core work on our back. From the top of the thigh bone, we externally rotate, internally rotate. So the thigh bone rotates away from the body, in toward the body, but nothing changes about the low back and nothing changes about this stabilizing hip, the left side. Straight and strong in both arms. Lower that right knee down, move the block aside if you have it. And this time we're gonna belly roll or torso circle. Couple times both ways, freeing up any tension in the back or side body. Left foot steps forward. Feel free to tuck the right toes. lifting up into that active 90-90. Zipper pubic bone up, fingertips reach down. We alternate those side bends. These could be so small. Can we side bend and arc the ribs up and over without the hips wiggling side to side? So low back still and strong. Couple more side bends each way. Active in that right glute. Hands or fists come down. Three-legged quadruped. Again, you're welcome to balance the block on the back of the pelvis. Left toes back, zipper pubic bone to belly as you float the left toes. Make sure you don't arch the back or drop the belly. We externally and internally rotate the left hip. The goal is for us to isolate the left hip moving without the low back moving and without the right hip moving. So really working on that stability of the low back and the mobility of the hips. Bring it down, quadruped. End up wherever you want. Cat, cow if it feels good. Take some kind of child's pose if that feels nice. Or tuck the toes, pike the pelvis up. Any down dog. Breathing into the ribs. Pressing into the fingertips, the knuckles. Walk your feet forward. Bent knee forward fold. Press the ground away. We'll rise up. Hands come down. Right foot steps back into a high lunge. Right knee is soft or very bent. Pelvis is neutral, so we zipper up, cinch those pelvic points in. We'll tap the right foot forward, holding the low back still, and then pick up the right foot, hip flexion, tap down, back to our lunge. So we're going to be moving back and forth from our lunge to a single leg balance. And of course, the goal is for that low back to stay long and still. So we're just moving the hips. You can go right to your balance, right to your lunge without the taps. You can amp it up by resisting that hip flexion, by trying to push the thigh away, not letting it move. Pause in your lunge with that right foot back. We're going to turn to the side of the mat, turning to the right. Externally rotate the hips, so toes turn out a little bit. We bend the knees into a squat. You can have arms out, you can have hands on the thighs, but we'll side bend. Alternating both sides. Getting that stretch and pull through the side body. Any pace you'd like to do this. We're going to turn to the back of the mat. So continue turning right. Shorten your stance by walking that left foot in quite a bit. We're going to come into a staggered hip hinge. So most of our weight is in this right foot. You're welcome to have hands on the pelvis wherever you want. And we're going to hinge forward. Long in the spine, long in the low back. Use your glutes to get back up. So we hinge forward, long spine, long low back. Exhale, push down into the feet, into the ground to get back up. Couple more times. Working the glutes, stabilizing the low back. Let's turn back to the left now. So back to the side of the mat we were just at. Feet as far apart as you'd like. We're going to hinge forward before we side lunge and just do a little tick-tock or wag of the hips side to side. But think about zippering the pubic bone up. So we're not lifting the tailbone or arching the low back. We're staying long. And now let's side lunge. Hold that pelvis still as we move the hips side to side. Any pace for side lunges, whatever you'd like to do with your hands. They can, of course, be on your body for a little more feedback or awareness. Let's turn to the front of the mat. And now we step left foot back. Knee is bent or very soft. Zipper the pubic bone up. Tap the left foot forward. Flex the hip, thigh toward the torso. Tap down, back to your lunge. Push into that right foot. Our goal is to hold the pelvis still and the low back still while we just move the hips. You can skip any taps if you're feeling really balanced today. Keep the taps if that's better. Add resistance, hand to thigh. Amping up that hip flexor activation. Long low back. Pause in your lunge, left foot back. We turn to the side of the mat, externally rotate the hips, bend the knees, arms come out. This time we're gonna shift the ribs side to side. So hold the pelvis still, hold the low back still, and we just try to glide the ribs right and left. Different way to kind of pull on that side body and lower back tissue. Strong legs. Turn to the back of the mat for that staggered hinge. Walk that right foot in, knees are bent, most of our weight is in the left foot. Inhale, hinge forward. We're lengthening the glutes, lengthening the low back. Exhale, lift up, contracting the glutes. Inhale, forward, long low back. Exhale up. Imagine you have that broom taped behind you. So we're really working on hinging at the hips, not rounding the back or flexing to get lower, and not drooping the ribs or tipping the pelvis, lifting the tailbone to get lower, holding that low back really still. Turn back to the right, so back to the side of the mat, feet as wide as you'd like. We hinge forward, hands wherever you want, as we just kind of tick-tock the hips side to side. Press into the feet, not just the heels. Now, as we move into those side lunges, stay upright, stay really structured if that feels best. If it feels good to lower the hands down further or even to blocks, you can make it a little bit more snaky, a little bit more like you're swaying the ribs side to side if that feels nice. We're going to turn back to the front for quadruped. Imagine a marker on your tailbone, and we're going to draw some circles with our tailbone. Pelvic circles. Try a couple both directions and try to keep your jaw relaxed and your tongue relaxed. Let's come onto our backs. Knees bent, soles of the feet on the mat, checking for that triple S, back of the skull, shoulder blades and sacrum. We'll pick up the left foot, cross it over for a figure four. Option to stay exactly in this position. You can pick up the right foot without grabbing and pulling. So this is our second option. Third option, relax that right foot and just straighten and bend the right knee any amount. This is not about a muscular stretch. As we straighten the leg, we're pulling on that sciatic nerve, and then as we bend, we're getting more space to the nerve. So it's just a gentle knee bend and straighten, a little nerve glide or nerve floss as we stretch this left hip. Release it down, recheck that the low back is long, right foot comes up, crosses over, figure four. Stay here, option one, option two, option three, nerve glide, any amount, extend and bend that left knee, stretching or pulling on that sciatic nerve, and then giving it a little slack. As you release it down, lots of options as we finish up. You can rock side to side. You can bring the feet down, flap the knees, roll onto the outer edge, inner edge, little hip mobility. You can take a half happy baby, full happy baby, anything you want. Or if you're just ready to finish up your practice, you can end on your back or even in a seated position or on your side, whatever feels supportive today. And as you close your eyes, relax any tension from the body, starting at the forehead, the jaw, the neck, the chest and the shoulders. Let go of any tightness around the ribs or the belly. Think about giving as much space and length to the low back as you can. Releasing any gripping around the low back, the glutes, the pelvis. Relax the muscles of your legs, all the way down to the feet and the toes. As you come back to whatever your natural breath is, take a moment to thank yourself for your practice today, for showing up and making time for yourself even when it's hard. I invite you to send one grateful thought out into the universe.